so that you'll um, be able to watch this at a later time. Also, before she gets started, I just want to say I'll be posting a Google Doc link in the chat for you to record your thoughts. We're going to be sharing this with our team at QM, and they're going to be gathering all this information and sharing it at the end of the day in the quality and action wrap up. So thank you, Melony. Take it away.
Thank you so much, and greetings, everyone, and welcome to the session, Humanizing Learning, Principles and Practices to Enhance Instruction. I am Melony Shemberger, and I am an associate professor of journalism and mass communication at Murray State University. Those of you who don't know where Murray State is, there are actually two Murray States in the nation, believe it or not. One is where I am, Murray State University. That is on the western side of Kentucky. We are approximately an hour from Paducah, almost 2 hours north of Nashville, maybe 3 hours outside of St. Louis. So that gives you some points there, location points to understand where I am. The other Murray State, in case you're wondering, I believe, if I remember right, it's in Utah, and they're known as Murray State College. So I always like to make sure I tell people I'm from Murray State University because there are differences. I have been with Quality Matters as far as really studying quality matters and practicing all of that since 2017. And the reason why I kind of hesitated there, we have at that time, we hired a new director. I was the interim director of the Faculty Development Center throughout 2016. I was on the tenure track, so I wanted to return to my department. And in 2017, we hired a new one, and she came in with all of this wonderful knowledge of quality matters and instructional design, and I wanted to know what she knew. So I immediately plunged into applying the QM standards, and then I thought, I want to be a reviewer. Went for that certification. I want to be a master peer reviewer. Went for that. I have the teaching online certificate. I love all things quality matters. So it makes sense. But you know what I've learned about the rubric is there is some room to do things. People think it's so rigid, and it's not. And this is where I think the humanizing learning piece can really come into play to help show that, yes, we have these standards, but there are some fun ways, some human ways that we can make all of the standards happen. So I'm glad you're here with me today. So I want to start by, and what I'd like for you to do, we're going to use the chat function. So this question here, what makes teaching and learning human to you? But I'm going to give everybody, let's see, this is what I want you to do. So don't do it yet. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds to put one word in the field, but don't hit send yet. And then at the end of that 30 seconds, then I'll say, okay, now hit the send, and then I'd like to see what populates. So think of one word. I'm going to give you on your mark, get set, go as far as when your 30 seconds starts. So don't send yet. Okay, now go ahead and put your word in the chat box. What makes teaching and learning human to you? But don't send yet. I'll tell you when to send. So you're going to hear some awkward silence. We have about 20 seconds left. What makes teaching and learning human to you? And we have about 10 seconds left. I'm going to open my chat box so I can see. Getting ready. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, hit. Oh, wow. Look at all of this. Okay, I'm going to scroll for just a moment. So yes, empathy. We're going to talk about empathy, connection. And this is a word that I think we'll start seeing more of with humanized learning. Growth, again, connection, yeah, engagement, collaboration. Wow, yes, real world stories. I love that. Sending video communication, love it. Familiar, yes, trying to set that environment so that way everybody is comfortable. Relationships, thanks, Katie. It's good to see you. Let's see, exchange of ideas. I love it. Compassion. That's a good one. I like that. Meeting students where they are. Absolutely. Give and take. That's a good one. Interaction, collaboration, use of language to communicate information. I like that. And relationships. Thank you so much for participating on that. I love that because everything all of you said, spot on. Okay. So I wanted you to know that. So I want you to think about some of those words as we move through this, because you'll find those threads where we can put that. Okay. All right. Thank you. So here is what I'm hoping that you'll be able to do. We're going to have a little activity later on that I want you to be able to apply these things, but these are the goals for the session. That first, as we go through the humanizing principles, now there's going to probably be one that really speaks to you. I like to always tell faculty as well as others or other educators or instructional designers, just because the information we share doesn't mean you have to use it all. Find something that, again, that connection that connects with you. So I want you to be able to choose a humanizing principle that is grabbing your attention, that you want to explore and really begin your work on. And then through that principle, we're going to talk about some practices. So I want you to be able to select a humanizing practice to implement through a humanized learning element, and then determine what that element will be and how, yes, you can advance that through the use of a learning management system. So a lot of the things that I might share as far as examples to some of these pieces will come more from the online lens, because that is basically the context in which we work with, especially with Quality Matters. But a lot of these things can be applied also in face-to-face instruction. So I like to make sure that people understand that. And that's something that I think is really important too. So those are the goals for today. So I'm going to talk first about what is humanized learning, and then we'll go into the principles and practices. There's a lot of layers to it. So we're going to move in different levels, okay? And then the elements, those are going to be those hardcore pieces, those particular strategies that you can share with your colleagues and that you can implement. And we'll also show how really they do address certain Quality Matters rubric standards, again, kind of helping to humanize that rubric a little bit. And then we'll definitely have time for questions. And then there are some resources that I can offer you. Really, it's going to be based on this presentation. And I'll be able to share this presentation. I've not uploaded it yet in the Quality Matters conference area, but that will be done. So you will have a copy of this. Okay, so let's get started. I want to tell you first about Dr. Michelle Pacansky-Brock. She is the one, now, let me put it this way. I think she is the mother of humanized learning, but she will probably say that she has others that she works with on this endeavor, but really she is the face of humanized teaching and learning. A lot of what we know now about how we humanize our teaching and learning stems from her work in the past decade. But I believe her work has really brightly, definitely since COVID, but even as online education has continued and has really grown in the last few years. She's on Twitter at BROCANSKY. I follow her and she follows me back. She, again, a lot of her research really points to this. She has taken her work, though, and started to apply humanized learning more in the STEM fields. So she has branched out more in that direction, which I think is wonderful. When I told her, she emailed me because there was an article that I did it's basically a proceedings article from another conference last year, and it used a lot of what I'm sharing with you. But when she wrote me, and then I wrote her back saying that I'm also looking, I've been applying this in Quality Matters as well, because I think this is really important for us to make those connections between our standards and as well as how we can be that humanizing piece. And then in addition, I've been trying to elevate her work more beyond the online atmosphere. Again, these are things we can do somehow in the classroom. And if not necessarily in the classroom, then we have that course shell. I don't know of anybody who doesn't really have a course shell in addition to their So, we have access to that. So how do we, again, help to humanize that component of our instruction? So she is really, again, a trailblazer in this. And she does have her own website where she can share, again, some of her research as well. So I really encourage you to give her a follow if you use Twitter, and if you don't, make sure that if you're really wanting to grow in humanized learning, that this is the source that you really need to speak to as far as using any of it. It's very well grounded in several key areas of learning theories. I'll just mention those as we move forward. So let's look at what humanized online teaching is. It does support the affective and cognitive dimensions of learning at a distance. Okay, so again, when she started this work, this was the direction she was taking. So we have all of these as instructors. We have the materials that we want to share with our students. That's fine. That's what our purpose is. We've got to set the learning environment for that. We've got to make sure that the material is timely, that it is accurate, and that it really aligns with what the purpose of the instruction is. That's going to support the cognitive. But how do we reach students in a way that we don't see them as just some sort of cell to absorb this information? These are people. There is somebody on the other side of that screen. So when we humanize that, we're speaking then to both dimensions, the affective and the cognitive. And that's really important. And that's been supported through research for more than a century. It does begin with us. Okay, so while it says it begins with human presence and trust, and we're going to talk about those principles in a moment, but it begins with us. We have to remember that we're here for our students because they are the beneficiaries of everything that we do. We want to foster that instructor-student relationship so that way they can build this intellectual capacity that we know they're capable of achieving. I know that every student who comes to my class, while they may say, I'm just here, I just want my grade, I just want the credit, I'm like, that's fine and that's valid. But I also want to get to know you as a person, okay? And we can do that through some of the activities that I structure with them in the classroom as well as in the classroom online. So again, it's that human presence is really important. It draws upon some cultural responsive teaching, which I was really glad if you attended the keynote from Dr. Brooks. She really spoke to some extent on this. Dr. Pakonski-Brock also brings in validation theory, social presence, which is what I always I tend to ground a lot of my studies on as well. And then definitely the universal design for learning. So a lot of those areas, and there's some other theories as well, but it really draws upon that to make this idea really work. So we're going to travel now. We're going to go to a 30,000-foot view. Okay, so we're going to start this focus on humanized teaching, and it starts with these main principles. So I noticed in the chat, several of you noted empathy. Excellent. That is a humanizing principle. What that means is that we're able to understand that our students they're not just here for an education for the degree. They're here because we know they want to make their lives better. But in doing so, they have lives too right now. Students are coming to us with more challenges, whether it be in the family, at home, whether it's work. More and more students are having to work just to attend college. So we have to understand as instructors, we need to be empathetic to that, I do believe. Now, that doesn't mean we throw all the rules out the door. We do need to communicate that to our students, but it's the ability to give some grace when it's needed. It's the ability to open up that door of communication. I need to know what's going on, maybe not specifically what's going on in your lives, but if you've got something that you're like, I know I cannot meet this deadline, communicate that to us. We can be empathetic about that because we know we've had to ask for extensions ourselves, not just as students, but even in our professional lives. So we've got to demonstrate empathy. Awareness. It is being aware that, again, kind of going back to what I mentioned earlier, that our students are, they've got a lot going on in their lives, and I can usually tell. So let me do a face-to-face example and then an online example. So face-to-face, we can see when students come in, some of them look tired. They may not be as talkative. There have been some days, even in 1 week, when I go into the classroom and they're talking. It's bustling with some conversations, and I love it. And I can go in the exact same time another day. It's just quiet. It's silence. So, and I tune into that. I'm like, what's going on? We're tired, Dr. S. And I said, okay, that's fair. I said, so let's stand up and let's stretch a little bit. I said, do y'all want to go walk around the building, just do a lap, be back here in 5 minutes? They're like, yeah, that'll work. So it's just things like that for the, face-to-face. Now let's bring it to online. Students' work maybe is not as it had been. I see that often because, especially on the graduate level, when some of our working students, our professionals, they've done really well, and then something happens, and so I'm being aware of something going on. They haven't reached out to me yet, but I am aware of that. So when we're able to practice that awareness, then I think that is where we can humanize a doorway here. And then presence is, how present are we as instructors, even in our own instruction? Okay. So are we making sure that the materials that we're putting together for their benefit? Going back to some of those standards, if we're going to use videos, for instance, are we making those accessible? Are we using closed caption? Are we making sure that that what we're sharing is the point of the lesson? We're not giving a bunch of extraneous information, so that's one level of presence. There's also the social presence, definitely with the instructor, and then they have the peer-to-peer presence. So how are we providing for that? With the peers in their classes, are we setting up some opportunities for them to work together to, again, make the whole learning environment experience humanizing? Now, woven through all of that is an important principle, and it's one that just really can't stand out on its own. It's one that has to work in concert with each of those three, and that's trust. We need to trust our students. And that means that we do put everything out there for them, and we can trust that hopefully they'll complete the work. We also hope to trust that they can come to us to tell us when things are not going well. Again, that threads into empathy. So that trust is really important for all the other three to work. And if we don't have trust, then we can't expect any of those three to work well. And likewise, hopefully that then they start trusting us more. So those are the three main threads, and then plus the foundational one of trust. That makes up the 4 humanizing principles that are going to guide everything else that we do in setting up the conditions for humanized teaching and learning. So, okay, that's the 30,000 foot view. Now we're going to drop a little bit to 20,000 feet, because this time we're going to look at some of the practices. So these practices work in concert with those principles, with those overarching principles. So for instance, if you are really drawn to that principle of presence, well, then you are going to want to practice actively cultivating human presence. So maybe online class, and here's an example. This is what I do. So in an online class at the beginning of the week, I put together, I've got everything situated in the module. And then I will put out a text announcement to kind of say, okay, you've got this module ready. This is what you're getting ready to explore this week. It ties back into this. It's just and maybe even some updates, but I put it into a text field. We use Canvas, by the way. And then midweek, I'm going to do a midweek, and I'm going to do a video. And I usually do it from my office. And then sometimes I've done it from home. So sometimes they'll see my cat come across the screen. But I want them now to see me. I'm doing a check-in, how are things going? You've been studying this week about this. This is why it's so important. And I hope you're seeing this. So, it's things like that. They get to see my face. They get to hear me. And that helps to cultivate that human presence in an online environment. Another practice is that we identify high opportunity students. Now, when I've shared this with my colleagues in my department, they're like, well, Melony, that sounds like as though we're only going to focus on students who are high achieving. I said, no, that's just it. You're contradicting that. That's not what this means. So when we identify high opportunity students, really what we're saying is we know that every student can do this work. Okay, so we need to be able to communicate that message to our students. They're here for a reason. They're in college. They've already proved that they can be admitted into a university. Now, they can do this work in the classroom if we, again, set up those conditions for them to do it. So we identify that as, okay, students, this is an opportunity, and I know you all can meet that. That kind of feeds into the third practice. And this is the one I've been working on really hard in the past year. And that instructor is a warm demander. Okay. So knowing that I have high opportunity students, if I set up the conditions, they can do the work, they can reach those goals. And in doing so, I'm going to provide feedback to them that tells them, this is a great topic, or you are spot on with this. I like how you did this. This is wonderful. This is what I think you have something here that you can really run with in another course. The good, what we consider positive feedback. But, even in our feedback for improvement, this is where I can also tell them, you're doing great here. This is where I know you can improve. This is where I can see some sort of work to further advance what you're wanting to do. So we're being that warm demander, basically putting into place that we know you can do the work and we're going to set those conditions. That's great. And you're doing that, but let's move it a step further. I know you can do better. You can do more. You can do this, and we're going to help you reach that. So when we do those types of practices, then we are feeding into those principles. Those principles I mentioned earlier help to set up that framework. And then again, so I mentioned some theories earlier that Dr. Pakonski-Brock is that she has as part of her work. There are others, so that it's that motivation theory, okay? And then the community of inquiry, which is made up of the various three dimensions of presence. Again, the socials, that peer-to-peer, learner to instructor, and learner to content. So those practices are supported by these frameworks as well. So I'm hoping you're starting to see that, wow, a lot of this really ties into some things together. And I think that's kind of the beauty of education, truthfully, but these are the ones that are the most relevant. So we're coming in now, we're kind of dropped some more at 10,000 feet. So I've shared with you the principles, I've shared with you those practices. And actually, I'm going to back up because I want you to, again, see those principles again. So the principles of empathy, awareness, presence, trust feeds into all of that. Okay. So empathy, awareness, presence, and then trust. Okay, those are the principles. The practices, we can cultivate human presence. We're going to identify high opportunity students. And then we're going to be that warm demander and really making sure that that our students feel confident about their learning. Okay. So now we're coming in at 10,000 feet because that's setting us up for some humanizing elements that we're going to explore. And I think these humanizing elements, they're so much part of the course design. We can design courses and we can design them well, but we've got to facilitate them well too. Okay. So we've got, in other words, I see facilitation as that humanizing component. Okay. The course design is there. It's all established. It's planned well. It's planned effectively according to various learning principles, instructional design principles that we know are trusted. But if it's not facilitated well, if it's not given that human component, then, that's where a good course design could fail. All right. So you've got to have both. And then the humanizing elements that we're getting ready to look at, that can help you to achieve both in doing that. Okay. So we can bring together that course design and facilitation. So we're going to go through several, and these are ones that Dr. Pakonski-Brock has put out and has given those as suggestions. I've tried some. I've not tried them all. And you're going to find that there are some you're going to be like, that's just not me. And that's okay. But I think there's going to be something for everyone. Okay. So the first one is one that she called liquid syllabus. Sounds weird. But if you think about what liquid is, especially water, it's transparent, right? So with the liquid syllabus, we want to be able to offer some hopeful language. One of the chat responses earlier, when we did that little activity, somebody mentioned some language. Yes, that's what that really involves. And we're informing students what they need to know about your course to be successful. So when we're talking about a syllabus, we see syllabus as a contract, right? We set out the expectations of what we want our students to do, but we also put in there what our guidelines are, the grading scale, due dates, things like that, okay? How we want to communicate with each other. But what if you can make that a little bit more warm, a little bit more friendly? Giving you that humanizing piece, so that way they can see you a little bit clearly. Okay. So one way that I've done this, and I'm one of those, my personality is Spartan. I'm going to admit that. I do kind of like to make sure that students understand, listen, we're both here for you're here to learn, I'm here to teach, but we're both here to learn together. So we have a job to do. So let's make sure that we get the job done. But one of the things I like to do in the liquid syllabus is I give them the course description, which we know is so clinical. And it's written in that way, and it's understandable as to why. But I want them to really know what we're getting ready to do. So I give them my version of the course description. And that's kind of something that I think is really helpful. That way they can see, okay, this course is going to be, it speaks my language. Okay. So that's something that I really want them to see. I've had some colleagues, they like to put pictures of themselves doing something that they enjoy, whether it be gardening or being with their pets, a family photo. Maybe if they went out of the country and had a great picture just to share of them, wearing maybe their favorite college shirt, something like that. That's great. That helps to do that as well. So that's all about the liquid. There are other things that you could do with the liquid syllabus, but that gives you some ideas as well. A humanized homepage. So here, again, it's mostly online, but in the face-to-face courses that I have, I try to have a humanized homepage as well. Basically, so you can offer a welcome message. So you can offer a brief video that welcomes students, tells them how to proceed, a start here, here's the start here button. You just kind of give them maybe a 2-minute intro just to say, hey, it's good to see you. I know you're eager to get started, so I can tell you where that button is. You should be seeing this blue button in the middle of the screen, something like that. That way, it helps them to know where to begin. Whenever I do the humanized homepages, I like to have some color. It's not a bunch of text. And then I always like for them to see where they can find their modules. I try to think about them. And throughout each semester, I do ask students kind of near the end sometimes, maybe I should start at the beginning, but even their feedback at the end has helped me. I'll ask them, was this setup helpful? And they're like, yeah, or they'll give me some recommendations. So I have applied those recommendations throughout time as well to make it better for the next class. A getting to know you survey. This is one that I think many instructors, many faculty members really like. And I can see why, because you're wanting students to really share something about themselves with you. where it is confidential. So you could do this through a Google form. You could do it through a simple note card. That is if you're in person, but in online, you can do a Google form. If you're in person, you can do maybe a note card, or you can even have them do a Google form. It's however how you want to set it up. But basically, it's telling the students, I want to know who you are. I want to know what makes you tick. Because maybe there is something that we're going to talk about in this class that we could use your expertise, So to give you an example, I teach face-to-face media literacy and society. And we go through, it's a survey course basically, but we go through the different media industries. And one of the things that I've gotten to know my students, especially when we get to the unit about music, I set up assignments for them to really explore that. But when I get to know about the kind of music choices they really like, so before we even start that unit, I have music going on at the beginning of class, that is. So that's because I was able to find that out early on in the semester. So it's things like that you can do to kind of just, you get to know about them. They can tell you anything. So it doesn't have to be just the, hobbies. It could also be for them to share. Maybe they know of an issue that they feel like could impede their learning process, and they feel like maybe you need to know. Okay. And when students do that, wow, they're putting a lot of trust in you. So really keep that confidential. Try to every now and then check in with that student to see, hey, I'm just thinking about you, just letting you know. Okay. So that's another way that you can use an element to practice any of those humanizing principles. Warm, wise feedback. So I mentioned earlier in the practice, I've been trying to really work on becoming a better warm demander. The warm, wise feedback is something that ties into that, and I have been really working hard on that. So it's targeted feedback that conveys high expectations. You can use audio or video. I have done audio before, but I'm also making sure about my language when I really do more of the written comments. So I always point out the good points, the things that this is where you are doing well, keep making strides in this area, keep doing what you're doing. But here's some things that we really need to work on moving forward. Now, this is really, I like those key words there, targeted feedback. The students are not going to be able to change everything overnight. You have to help the student really figure out what's important for them to try to revise, try to correct, to move forward. And I think that's really key. I think sometimes those of us who might grade assignments that have a lot of writing components to it, you can't do line by line. That's not going to be fruitful for anybody right now. So it's just more about trying to make sure, are there some things that this is where I really want them to grow. Okay. And that's where we need to really bring about that kind of language that's going to be supportive, but that kind of practices that warm demander. I know you can do this. Go to the writing center. I need you to do that. That type of thing. So that can be an element that you could practice. The self-affirming icebreaker. This is fun to do, definitely at the beginning of a course. You can let students know, or let students know their values, their hopes, dreams, and experiences. It lets them know that all of that matters. And whenever students do icebreakers in an online and they share all of this information about them, I try to go and connect with one of those in some way, because I want them to see that, we already have a common thread here. So if a student of mine loves college basketball, which I do, during college basketball season, I hardly get anything done because I'm always either at a game or watching games on TV, but I'm already able to connect with that, so it's just things like that that's really important. The wisdom wall. This is one I've not done. I really want to do, and I just can never really remember it. So students at the end of a course identify something they wish they knew at the start. And then you have that information. And then they can share with the next set of new students at the beginning. So you could set this up in a number of ways. You could do a Padlet. You could do a Google Jamboard. You could just even have note cards, and then again, that's face-to-face. And then if you at your next course, then you can put them up on the chalkboard, on the wall, whatever. So you could do a lot of different things with this one. And like I say, I think it's because we're near the end of a semester and we're just trying to push through. But this one I think would be fun to do. And I think that way on day one, you can share that data. Again, it would be anonymous, but you could share that data with the next class. And I think that it helps just to build a greater connection. The bumper video, it's a short video. It just introduces a module or new concept. You could put music in there. Maybe there's a certain visual, whatever that to help engage students, get them ready for that next unit. I've done this in a undergraduate course. And they like it. It does take a lot of work. So that's why I say you really want to choose maybe one of these to pursue, because you really can't always do them all. But this could be one that would be, I think, pretty exciting to do. And I think many people already do this anyway. And then, of course, we also do the micro lectures. This helps students. Now, I've heard some faculty, some of them have told me, what's really the point of micro lecture? If a student, they can just stop. They can pause a video, like a video lecture. I'm like, that's yes, they can, but it helps to keeps things chunked on a specific topic. That way, it helps to build, I think, somewhat of their cognitive and knowledge about something. If they know that they need to watch something again about a certain topic, they can just go right to that video. Rather than having to, okay, at what point in this video, in this hour-long lecture, was this discussed? It really helps. Again, we're trying to support the students' cognitive dimension. We want them to like what we're teaching them, or at least an appreciation or a better understanding. So let's build that cognitive, and let's help with that along by really helping to support the affective as well. So micro lectures are really important. I even in an on-class and in-class environment, rather, I have to break down. We do it in class as well, break down the lectures. I might lecture for about 10 minutes and then we do an activity, and then we'll bring it all together. They do a little report, whatever. And then I might lecture again for about 15 minutes. And then we go maybe into a think, pair, share. So, you got to break things down. It really helps. Otherwise, sitting through something for very long might not be useful. Trying to watch my time as well to make sure, because I want to get to something in a moment. So, okay, so we've traveled at 30,000 feet. We dropped it to 20, 10. Now we're going to, rather than preparing for landing, we're going to prepare for alignment. So those humanizing elements, they really help to address these standards outright. So when we can do, certain, we can do those introduction videos, those welcome videos, that course overview, that's standard one. And then when we're able to do create opportunities for them to really demonstrate what they're learning, that's that assessment and measurement standard. Instructional materials, your micro lectures, your bumper videos, that can be helpful for standard 4. And then, of course, all the activities that we've talked about in some of those elements, that helps to build standard 5 for that learner interaction, whether it's interacting better with you or the content or their peers. So those are some of course, you're probably thinking, well, it could also connect to this standard. It can, especially with the videos. You've got to make sure they are accessible and closed caption. So that would be another standard. But these are the 4 main ones that I really think that these humanizing elements, they address our quality matters rubric standards and help us to really grow and humanize that rubric. Okay. So kind of do a review. I hope you've been able to, when we went through the principles, those 3 main ones, and then the trust threads through all of them, but that maybe you could choose one that you really want to explore in greater depth. And that we went through those practices to implement that maybe you could choose one of those. So like I said, mine that I really wanted to focus on was being a better warm demander. And so the practices, or excuse me, the elements that were really helpful for me to do that warm, wise feedback, I was able to really hone in on that one for me. Definitely you can do it in any LMS, but like I said, you can also do it in face-to-face, really almost any learning environment. You can really humanize it all. So what principle, practice, and or element, maybe you've got all three, but maybe there's just something that really spoke to you and you're like, this is what I want to cultivate. This is what I want to really focus on for the next course that I teach. So we are going to take, I'm on Central Time, so it's 10:52. Let me do this. I'm going to do this watch. We're going to just take 1 minute, because I do want to save some time to open up for you all to have any questions or comments. And plus I want to see what's in the chat as well. But I'm going to give you all 2 minutes. Okay. 2 minutes, and I'll tell you when. And again, I want you to think about, what is it that spoke to you and what you're eager to try. And we're going to do it similarly that from the beginning. You're going to put it in the chat, but I'll tell you when to send it. Okay. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes in just a moment. And then we can start. So your 2 minutes will start now. And when we get closer to the end of 2 minutes, then I will tell you to send it. Okay. We got about 45 seconds left. Fifteen seconds. Okay. 3, 2, 1. If you've got it, go ahead and send. I love this. All right. Oh, good. I'm so glad somebody is going to practice that wisdom wall. Oh, I've really got to be more on top about that. Liquid syllabus. Yes. Good. Wisdom wall, wisdom wall. I really got to do that. Maya Smith, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Eager to try the video midweek check-in. Yeah, you already do a check-in announcements, but you can see how adding okay, good. Excellent. I'm so glad. Humanizing the homepage with a welcome video instead of a welcome letter. That is great too. Just, even the letter's good. If you want to still stay with the text, is there a way to not make it maybe too wordy, or something like that? Again, language is important too. So I don't want to de-emphasize text at all. Liquid syllabus, warm, wise feedback. Work on being a better warm demander. We want to use feedback to convey high expectations and not just to use as regular feedback. That's a good distinction. I appreciate that. The warm demander struck you good. Bumper videos, good. Getting to know you survey. Considered, okay, good. Some of you have been doing things already, but you're wanting to amp it up now. Awesome. This is fantastic. Oh, thank you all so much. Oh, good. Thanks, Maya. I appreciate that affirmation. Thank you. This is wonderful. So we do have a few minutes. I think 6 minutes, if I remember my timing correctly. If anyone would like to, if you have any questions that you want to ask outright or any comments that you would like to make, we can all benefit from whatever it is you have to share. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see, like I said, let me finish up these resources. These are the ones used for this presentation. So I will, today, I will upload this so that way you have this, because so in addition to some of the information, it was contained in a manuscript from 2019, but this right here, I call it a choice board. It's really not exactly a choice board, and that's not interactive for you to choose, but it gives you some other options. It's really cool. So it's a Google Doc, so you'll have that as well. But I'm going to do a stop share so that way we can see if anybody has any questions or just anything. Let's see, I see a question from Amy Stahl. This has been really useful. I'm glad. Someone asked how do we be a warm demander with this generation of students? I'd like to know your thoughts on this. That's a very good question. And the only thing is, I think we just have to keep trying. I don't have a magic answer. I think it's just a matter of just keep practicing it. It might not click with the student at that time, but sometimes I think the things that we do are seeds, and they grow later. So I think it's just a matter of just keep practicing. Love to know other signs of students struggling in online to build awareness. What have others of you noticed? That's a good question to anybody who might want to either chime in with a response, or you can also put it in the chat. But otherwise, okay. I think many of these elements align with mindfulness practices. Yes, absolutely, Brenda. I could not agree more. Mindfulness for us, and then hopefully it cultivates where students are more mindful of their work too and how they interact with others. But yes, I agree. I agree. All right.
Melony, this is Liz. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for your presentation. This is the QM host, Liz Cummins here. I want to also thank everyone who attended today and contributed to the Google Doc. It's really going to help our staff as they kind of aggregate some of these wonderful points and put that into our final presentation for the end of the day. So also, when I close out this session, you'll be given a survey, a feedback survey will appear, and I'm sure Melony would love to get any feedback that you have or any ideas that you may want to share with her in that survey. So again, we want to thank you so much, Melony, and we'll see all of you in a later session. I believe now it's lunchtime. So, all right. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.